Hi there, welcome back to the Be the Cake podcast with me, your host Liz Campbell, and I'm recording this on a sunny Saturday morning with the window wide open, so you're going to hear cars going past possibly in the background of this, no matter anyhow. So what are we talking about today? What is the subject that has been burning to be spoken about? What I want to talk about today is why your intuition is your biggest asset and exactly why other people's strategies absolutely suck when it comes to fulfilling your purpose, creation, manifestation, all of that stuff. In terms of when I'm going to talk about when I talk about strategy, I'm talking about when people give you all the action steps. Okay, so in actual fact, we come back to this thing that the majority of people out there who are offering a route to success via, courses that they sell or whatever, essentially, a lot of them are selling, they've packaged up and are selling the way that they manage to create success for themselves, including action steps. And in actual fact, when people are doing that, what they're doing is basically taking what I'm going to call the cookie cutter approach and treating you, or their client, should I say, or anyone who signs up for their stuff as being the same as them. And you know, in your heart of hearts, that you're not the same as them. You're an individual. Even if you have similarities to them, you're not exactly the same. You have a unique soul. You have a unique voice that wants to be expressed in the world. You have, in actual fact, a unique purpose. Even if it's similar to what other people are doing, it's not the same because it's going to come through with your voice, and your voice is not the same as everybody else's. You have unique things that make you stand out, that differentiate you from everybody else, okay? You have unique skills and talents born of your life experiences so far, the things that you have inherited at a physical genetic level from your family, your soul stuff. There's so much that goes into this. And so this whole idea of if you do this and this and this, then you get this and it's predictable as fuck is actually bullshit. Because if you understand the fact that the universe is primarily an energetic space and place, and you hold literally a unique perspective point within that, and actually you have a unique core vibration and all the rest of it, you start to understand that doing what other people have done isn't necessarily going to get you the same results. And even if it does, there's a strong possibility that taking the steps that they've taken isn't going to feel aligned to you, and you're not going to enjoy taking those steps in order to get from A to B. And essentially, trying to make yourself fit into other people's ideas of how you should do things and follow other people's physical action strategies is usually going to, if it gets you any results at all, it's usually destined to actually make you feel kind of miserable or pissed off or bored in the process, because in actual fact, you're being asked to do things that don't light you up, okay? And this is where, in actual fact, when you listen to your intuition, it's the voice of love coming through your soul, okay? And it's different. It's not exactly the same, okay? When we're talking about true intuitive guidance, it's not the same as having what I'm going to call sort of the hypervigilant, fear-based, other experiences have given you kind of the fear about certain things type of voice. There are gut instincts that come through that are intuitive in terms of what to avoid and so on and so forth, based on previous experiences where things didn't go right. But in actual fact, the true voice of what I'm going to call your inner being isn't necessarily the same as that. There's an amount of your what I'm going to call the gut instinct and intuition, which is actually based on the reptilian system of your brain, which is a series of checks and balances and warnings that are based on the idea of threat. And when you're truly listening to your actual intuition, what it's going to be doing is guiding you in ways that may seem actually quite nonsensical to anyone looking in from the outside, and they may not even make sense to you because it's not something that you've been taught. Okay, it's not something that you've been taught. It's not something that can be taught in actual fact. It's something that can be activated. It's something that essentially you can have everything that's in the way of you hearing that properly cleared out, and you can learn to tune into it properly. But intuition can't be taught. It can only be connected with properly and then listened to and actually treated as a proper kind of the core internal guidance system from your soul that will direct you in ways that can be sometimes incredibly fucking surprising, okay, according to what your soul is saying. Because in actual fact, when you're looking at things from a human perspective, most people look at stuff in a very linear and logical fashion because we've been taught to do that by school, by society, so on and so forth. Your soul sees all the timelines. Your soul sees all the possibilities. Your soul can actually guide you towards essentially what is the route of or path of least resistance, which could, on the outside or from the logical side of the brain's perspective on things, seem like batshit crazy. But in actual fact, if you listen to it and you let go of this notion that you're essentially batshit crazy and having to ignore the so-called batshit crazy hunches that you're getting, if you actually start listening to those hunches and following them, you're going to find yourself walking a very magical pathway that leads you exactly where you want to go, with a lot more joy, a lot more fun, and a lot more ease than you would have if you're trying to shoehorn yourself into the round hole as a square peg. Do you see what I'm saying? So yes, intuition, it's unique to you. It's not, there's not a tick list with intuition of these are the things that you have to do in order to follow your intuition. It is a case of listening. It's a case of listening to those hunches, the ones that might seem almost counterintuitive from the point of view of your reptilian systems, like override that tries to kick in. Like, why am I doing this? Why am I suddenly feeling called to walk this route to work rather than that one? Think of those times in your life where you suddenly started having thoughts of someone from out of the blue and you couldn't work out why you were thinking about them. You haven't thought about them for ages. And the next thing you know, they're appearing in your inbox, or you get a phone call from them. Or even better, you go for a walk somewhere and you actually take a different route to the normal one, and then you bump into them and you end up having a catch up. And then they tell you that they'd been thinking about you and there was a reason why they wanted to get in touch with you. This is how intuition works, okay? It is the magic ingredient in getting from A to B that cannot be taught, that cannot be given in a checklist, that cannot be sold as a whatever step program. It just can't, okay? Because it is unique to you, and it is based on energetic frequency and on the web of interconnectedness that we are all connected into, okay? And the fact that, in actual fact, your body, if you're not holding a load of trauma, your body will clearly guide you with this stuff. You will find basically with this that if you've had a particularly traumatic childhood and you're still holding a lot of trauma in your body, okay, that it's difficult to listen to true intuition because there's still so much kind of fear-based stuff that's being held onto within your physical structure. And so in order to actually really allow your intuition to kind of have the driving seat, it's first necessary to do the work to release the physical trauma that you're holding on to. It could be PTSD, CPTSD, if you've had an abusive childhood, if you've experienced kind of violent relationships, bullying at school, difficult working environments that left a really lasting imprint on you due to things that happened that caused shock and dismay and anger and frustration and all sorts of reactions that you probably didn't process properly. All of these things actually equate to trauma. You know, you might be like, oh, well, it didn't seem that bad, and lots of people go through that, and surely that's not trauma. It's just like, trauma is anything that leaves a lasting impression on you that you haven't actually processed out properly from your body yet. So it could be something that, you know, when you look at it from the sort of general perspective, you're there going, well, it wasn't that bad according to everyone else, and so therefore I shouldn't have been traumatized by it. But in actual fact, you know, a lot of people are a lot more sensitive than they allow themselves to realise. And, you know, they might have been, and this could well apply to you, you may have been a child who was never taught how to regulate your emotional landscape or your nervous system by your parents. Okay, and so you shut yourself down and you cut yourself off from that part of you, but all of that stuff's still there in the background, okay? And essentially when you are to a degree numbed to all of the pain that you're carrying, it doesn't mean to say that it's not there. You're just dissociated from it and it's still in your body, and it does have an effect on how everything else works. At the point where you shift all of that, you'll find that your intuition gets very loud compared with how it was before, and you will have unmistakable hunches and knowings that start to pop up. One of the things I do when I work with clients is actually help them to open up their own intuitive guidance through clearing out the stuff that's in the way, the stuff that's basically muddying their clarity of being able to hear what their inner voice is trying to tell them. Okay, it's a very important part of the work if you're working with anyone in what I'm going to call a sort of spiritual / somatic / energetic capacity. It's like that work to actually fully release that which has been muddying the waters of your ability to clearly hear your own inner guidance and trust it enough to actually follow it. That's the other big thing. You know, if you were taught as a child that your voice didn't count and that other people were more important, you know, that's one of the big things that can really fuck with intuition quite strongly and cause you to second guess yourself all the time. So it's a case of, part of the process of opening up your intuition again is learning to trust yourself and learning to put your voice and your needs and your desires first over and above the people in your surroundings, because well-meaning as they may be, they aren't you. Okay, and you're not here to live their life, that you're here to live yours. And actually when you're living your life in your full light, like really lit up, okay, you are automatically a blessing to everyone who crosses your path. That's the way it works. Okay, when you are in your authentic truth, your true core frequencies, when I'm talking about core frequencies, I'm talking about your core soul frequencies. When you're in your core soul frequencies, when you're trusting yourself, when you are allowing your self-expression from that place, you are literally a blessing to everyone who crosses your path, and anyone who is in theirs who crosses your path is the same for you. Basically, we all essentially end up activating each other through holding this, like being these frequency holders and transmitters of our authentic truth. Okay, whatever that might be, and it does boil down to frequencies. And this, again, I'm going to say this is work that I do with clients when I'm working with them one-to-one or group. It's one of the first things I start talking about is like tapping into what your core frequencies are. What are the kind of guiding principles frequency wise that your soul carries, that your higher self carries, that actually are going to govern the best way for you to do things. Now, if you're like me and you have freedom as a core frequency, you're not going to find that following other people's systems works for you, because that's a form of enslavement. Okay, enslaving yourself to other people's ideas rather than allowing yourself to formulate your own and explore that. Okay, So, there's a lot to this. But essentially, without intuition, without allowing your intuition to lead the way, you're always going to be running things by trial and error, which slows down the speed with which you achieve success, which basically has you hiding your light under a bushel. And so therefore, we come back to this thing of intuition is truly your biggest asset in terms of you creating the life you've come here to create, which may be beyond your wildest dreams, beyond what you have allowed yourself to dream of as a human. If you felt like you were constantly being told you couldn't do this and you couldn't do that and and like you're not born into that kind of family, any of that kind of rhetoric that you heard as a kid that led you to believe that dreaming big was in some way bad or wrong or not for you, it's for other people, then there will be stuff that your soul desires that you have not yet connected with that wants to come through. And the first thing to do is to actually do the work either by yourself or with someone who you resonate with and trust to actually guide you in the right way, in a paid capacity, so that you can really hone in on the intuitive voice from within and get into a space of clarity. Clarity always precedes success, and intuition and clarity go hand in hand. That's all for this week. I'm sending you so much love. Thank you for joining me, and I'll be back next time with more intuitive insights and things that need to be spoken about.